to do anything he wants to do because he does lean towards the left and he does believe in the power of the presidency and also the power of he believes that the power of the people in democracy, that if they elect him, then he is the voice of the people, is his justification for it.
How do you feel about that executive order stance, Blaine? Isn't the executive branch charged with enforcing the current laws, not creating new laws?
That's exactly what I think executive orders, while they were written into the Constitution with a good intent, I think that it's been one of those things that the Alaska cause has gotten out of hand. And I think that there should be a way for Congress to override executive orders or some way to limit the power of the president in just issuing whatever he wants to do, which could be overturned by the Supreme Court. But if you have a Supreme Court comprised of largely Democratic or liberal justices, then they're likely to let that happen because it goes with their interpretation of the Constitution.
Let's switch gears just for a second. Let's talk about social media and the role that's played with Bernie to date. You can pick any myriad of ways to approach that question if there was something that struck you as particularly interesting as it pertains to social media.
I think Bernie has one of the largest social media presences of any of the candidates, and not only his own social media, his followers are some of the most open and on social media that you'll find. He has multiple accounts and posters just constantly advocating for him. He's got multiple websites. He has his own Twitter, Instagram, Facebook website that are constantly posting for him. And he plays off the current issues and what he's doing. For example, during the Democratic debate, maybe a month ago, the emails or tweets or posts that he would place during the debate were always related to what was just discussed during the debate.
Luke, why has a large social media presence maybe been a benefit for Bernie? I think it's been an unexpected rise in his popularity in the polls. How do you feel that that's reflected through his use of social media?
Well, I'm sure the people that are on social media all the time might not be completely informed about everything, but when they see Bernie Sanders on there, they might be thinking, hey, he's like me, we're both on social media or whatever. And so they might be leaning toward following him.
Specifically, who are those people who are usually on social media?
Well, I don't have any social media whatsoever, so I just probably high school students guessing.
I'm digging for a particular answer here. What group typically takes advantage of social media more than maybe another group? Guys, help them out.
Thinking young college students, a lot of whom are going to lean towards his views because he gets on social media talks, we should have free public college tuition, we should tax the rich, and he's appealing to the demographic that's on social media the most. So giving them these, you can almost say half-truths, only telling them the good parts of his plan while leaving out a lot of the others, is they hear Bernie Sanders and they think, free college tuition, I'm in, feel the burn.
Is that the definition?
Okay, so
I don't know how you follow that one.
well, I kind of want to use social media. You know, Bernie Sanders, he's kind of, taking the path of, Barack Obama's rather meteoric rise out of the Senate of, Illinois to the United States Senate to, another president, two-term president of the United States, who really relied on small donors, spread a broad base across the country to catapult himself to back-to-back wins in the election. Yet Bernie's doing all this same sort of thing: small donors, social media presence, big imprint there in the web or on the web. Yet he's still, in the latest CBS New York Times poll, he still trails Hillary Clinton by 19 percentage points. 19 percentage points. What does he need to do to distance himself from Mrs. Clinton and to really push himself over the top so the nation can feel and enjoy the burn in 2016?
He's at a huge disadvantage just because Hillary Clinton has such a big name, Secretary of State. She's in the news. Everybody knows who Hillary Clinton is. Another thing is,
Isn't that just an excuse, though? He's in the news. Bernie Sanders, he's all over the place with social media, like has been previously stated, and he's constantly taking advantage. Isn't that just an excuse?
it is an excuse, but honestly, it's the truth though. Like me, I had never heard of Bernie Sanders until this year for the election from stuff he put out. But I have heard of Hillary Clinton because of Bill Clinton, her being Secretary of State and whatnot. So honestly, a lot of people are uneducated in their votes. So like, they'll look at the list and they'll be like, Hillary Clinton, I recognize the name, I'm Democratic.
So Clinton's voters are uneducated.
Not all of them, but I mean, there's uneducated voters on both sides, I would say.
So Bernie's getting the educated voters.
Bernie is not getting the uneducated voters. That is me.
What I would argue is that right now Bernie considers himself a democratic socialist. And he stated the goal of his campaign is to, as he says, undemonize the word socialism in American language. And if he's going to continue to call himself that, right now there are millions of Americans who are Democratic, they lean to the left, but they say, I don't think I can just associate myself with somebody who's a self-proclaimed socialist. I might be a Democrat and I might believe in big government, but I don't think that I think socialism, that's just got a bad connotation. It's always seen as bad in American history. I don't think I can associate myself with that. So unless he can either undemonize the word or remove the label from himself, he's going to have a hard time surpassing Hillary, along with Hillary's previous fame. The success of Bill Clinton and his fame as a president all contribute to Hillary's lead.
Okay.
That's reports this morning with Donald Trump, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at the Drudge Report or the media reports from yesterday or anything, but there's been accusations from Donald Trump about Hillary Clinton, and she wears a wig. How do you think Bernie would respond to that?
I think he would respond to it the same way he responded about Harry Benghazi emails. He doesn't care. He would say that that's not relevant. During the Democratic debate, they brought up Benghazi and Hillary Clinton's emails, and he frankly said, I don't care about your emails. And I think to this he would say, I don't care if you wear a wig. That doesn't affect your competence as a presidential candidate.
There's a large belief that on the Democratic side, the cake is essentially already baked. That Hillary is clearly going to be the nominee. That Bernie really can't surpass her. What do you think are the chances that if Bernie does not win the Democratic nominee, that maybe he could run as a third-party candidate, like a Ralph Nader or a Ross Perot?
I mean, chances. I'd say there's
Likelihood.
a chance.
Okay.
But if he did do it, it would obviously take a lot of the liberal votes. So then that would hurt Hillary a lot. And then a Republican president would probably be elected.
Has he said anything about that in particular? Do we know of?
I don't think they've questioned him to the extent that, for example, Donald Trump, they've asked him multiple times, if you don't get the Republican nomination, will you run as an independent? First he said possibly, now he's leaning more towards no. I think that Bernie, if he does not win, I think that if he sees that he has a large enough following, I think that he would take the opportunity and run as a third party, but I don't think he would be successful because a lot of his voters are a smaller minority, young college students. He doesn't have the full support of the Democratic Party.
What does he need to do to earn that support? What issue does he need to embrace and really hang his hat on to distance himself? Maybe if we can't undemonize the word socialist, what does he need to do to sort of run more towards the middle of the Democratic Party? What issue could he adopt that he hasn't already, or that he needs to promote more?
That's a good question.
Maybe to
Thank you.
expand on it just a little bit more with just, he's been seen as a controversial senator from Vermont, being, independent. Can you think about one major accomplishment that he has done in the Senate that maybe he could build on to catapult him ahead of Hillary as the campaign moves forward?
In the Senate, he stood mainly for the values he still stands for now. He's held true to what he believes, generally pretty consistently throughout. I think that the issues he adopts right now still cater towards the younger population, tax the rich, affordable college tuition, universal healthcare. I think if he wants to win the votes of the majority of the Democratic Party, he needs to realize that there are a lot of older voters out there who support he's not winning. I think he needs to focus more on issues that appeal to an older demographic. For example, he needs to expand upon his foreign policy. He needs to release more details about the federal budget and how he plans to deal with that. And I think he needs to push more of, I think he needs to adopt more of a stance on social issues. We know that he's a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, that he still believes that America is just fundamentally institutionally racist, and he's adopted a lot of those social issues. But I think he needs to take part in social issues that affect an older demographic and not just the
Well, what social issues might that be?
Social issues.
The older demographic that Blaine had
Social
mentioned.
security is a big issue because we don't have any money to pay it out, and the baby boomers are getting their social security checks. So he needs to figure out a plan to fix that and ensure that social security will still be in the future.
Does he not have a plan for Social Security? He hasn't outlined one yet.
I believe that some of the taxes, such as the estate tax, the speculation tax, other import tax tariffs that he's planning to implement, will go towards funding Social Security. But personally, I'm not entirely sure if he has, for example, he's nailed the public tuition. He says the speculation tax will cover that completely. He's matching together. I don't think he's matched a specific tax plan to Social Security.
You mentioned Black Lives Matter. Obviously, you cannot open the newspaper or read much on Twitter or anywhere without hearing about the situation at the University of Missouri. What is Senator Sanders' stance on this?
So, just in general, racial justice, like what is his stance on that?
I mean, did he call for the president to resign? Did he come out and say that he stands with the football team or with this graduate student on hunger strike? What did he say about it?
I'm not sure if he released a specific statement when the issue first arose, but he did approve. I believe he did approve of the president stepping down, everything like that. And I think in general he would be in favor of the protesters for this, and he would claim that their protest is justified because, as he says, it's institutional racism.
Even given the news recently that it perhaps may have been fabricated or exaggerated, some of the accounts that the events that happened.
I think he might say that it doesn't matter if the specific event, it doesn't matter as much if it was fabricated, because he would say that we need to wake up and realize that situations like this are happening every day. And even if this situation is fabricated, there are hundreds of things that happen constantly that aren't fabricated, and this is just an example of what's going on.
That it fits the broader narrative.
Yeah, he would say this is just an example.
How about another issue? Social issue, Democrat. I think Democrat. Money. The idea that Bernie can be a year-round Santa Claus or kind of whatever with our money. But then they also have this idea of gender equality, which is a major issue. What is Bernie's stance on gender equality and roles of men and women and perhaps sexual identity or anything like that? There's maybe some controversy that's been unearthed about his previous.
He's totally in support of like equality between the sexes. So he claims, or the statistics he said, like women get paid less. That's a huge issue. So he would, I don't know what the bill was called, but he wants to pass a bill that would make it like that companies would be like have to match men and women's pay for their whole company.
Okay, that's hard to argue with. It does exist, gender inequality with the pay gap. What about restrooms? Should we be able to choose? What does Bernie think about that?
In terms of a lot of gender issues such as this, Bernie has multiple studies and journals have shown him to be one of the most liberal on gender issues like this. Many associations associated with the LGBT community give him like a 100% rating or an A+ rating. And so Bernie would likely say that you should be able to, I think there was something he was associated with in that bathrooms should have, instead of saying men and women, they should be separated by urinals and stalls, or simply stalls and gender-neutral bathroom options. I believe I saw associated with that argument.
How about this letter that he wrote in 1972? It appeared in a non-mainstream newspaper in Vermont. Quite controversial.
Very interesting.
Does that shed any light on his ability to lead or his views on these gender issues? You don't have to go into detail due to the sensitive nature of the letter.
I think that letter showed that he adopted what is the majority of people's views now. He adopted way before they were popular. Even in 1972, he was pro-LGBT, pro-women, pro-choice. He took what's now a liberal and popular stance on these issues way before a lot of them were even brought to the major political atmosphere. And so I think that does show that he does have consistency in what he does.
So he's a trailblazer. Okay.
Guys, I think one of my favorite Bernie Sanders quotes, or year-round Santa Claus as he's been otherwise associated, is we don't need 39 types of deodorant or 18 pairs of sneakers when children are hungry in this country. I think that's his socialist view as opposed to the free market stance on allowing businesses to come up with a business model that works for them, is profitable for them. What do you guys think about that? What's your take on the free market versus socialism that Bernie is projecting?
Well, like I said earlier, it takes away the incentive to do well.
Okay.
If you become socialist, because then everybody's just the same. It doesn't matter how hard you work.
Do we need an incentive if everybody's getting equal?
Like if we were socialist. I mean, that's why socialism doesn't work, is because everyone just becomes lax. They don't try to succeed because they know they're going to get money for what they need no matter what. And when nobody is putting into the government can't put out to everybody else. And that's why obviously Russia failed when they tried. So the deal with the Craig 9 deodorants or whatever, we do need to like help the really poor kids, I guess, that have food and whatnot, but that doesn't mean we have to sacrifice the free market for it.
As a fan of the free market, I personally think that he's saying that we should have the government take charge of that and then use the money that would go to the free market to pay for these children and everything. But I think that a lot of charities that are made possible because of the free market can do a better job at accessing these children, providing for them, than simply redistributing the money by the government.
If the government can't help them completely, I think they should find like the church, because that's what the church is there for, to reach out to those who need help.
Yesterday was Veterans Day, a day to be celebrated, by Americans and the sacrifice that these men and women have made. Luke, what is Bernie's stance on the treatment of veterans, and how would he change it, or would he keep it the same?
Well, he really respects veterans and all, and in the past he wanted to join in the Vietnam War, but wasn't accepted. I think he would stay the same with treatment of veterans.
Well, Bernie was the chairman of the one of the Veterans Affairs committees in the Senate for many years. And one of the keynote issues of his campaign is that the Veterans Affairs Administration currently is not caring for veterans in the way it needs to be. And he would argue that we need to completely redefine and reinvigorate the Veterans Affairs system, because right now we have veterans who are suffering from PTSD and injuries and all the things happen because of what happened to them in war. And he would argue that we need to revolutionize the system because it's not working.
Does he have an example of something that we need to do to help it to work?
Once again, he would say that we need to increase the size of the Department of Veterans Affairs using the tax dollars from the multiple tax plans to offer better care. And he also believes that universal health care could also play a role in helping give better access to health care to injured veterans.
So we often see in political races that when two candidates are kind of neck and neck, or at least pushing each other, that candidates tend to shift and change a little bit on their position.